So this is the third event we've run on Islay since September, all part of the supporting biodiversity within island-based farming and crofting systems. These events have been really worthwhile in peer-to-peer, farmer-to-farmer, crofter-to-crofter knowledge transfer, and are great at making a safe space for folk to come together and share ideas and practice and thoughts on the future direction of farming regionally and nationally.
I've seen a few things here today that I'd like to put in practice back home, especially with regards to wetland management, both for the sort of biodiversity benefits, but also in terms of how we can manage the water on our farm with the added benefit to biodiversity. Specifically for us, it would be waders and wildfowl, similar to here as well.
So we've been looking at the RSPB Loch Gryniot Reserve, which is also a farm. I think it's fair to say it's got a range of habitats within the site. For a relatively small area in a way, there's a lot of habitats, a lot of different key species that we manage for.
We've been looking at wetland management down the flats, wader management connected with that, and also we've had a discussion about corncrake management and creating early cover areas.
We've had a good look round at most of those habitats. I think we've probably concentrated on the breeding waders here, which are an important part of what we do.
Down in the flats behind me here, we had 150 pairs of breeding lapwing this year and 99 pairs of breeding redshank.
And this year we had 76 drumming snipe and 15 pairs of curlew. We also have 7 calling corncrakes this year and a pair of breeding chough, and on the hill ground with 3 to 4 pairs of hen harrier. So fairly diverse site with a lot of different key species, which is represented in all the different habitats that we are trying to manage for. Week February, first week of March, we will put a little section of pipe. We've cut a whole heap of sections because all these ditches are slightly different heights. Do it all by eye. We couldn't achieve the conservation at this site without running the farm here. Basically the cattle we have on the site are my biggest tool for providing the habitats that we need for most of the species that we're managing for corncrakes, for chough, for breeding waders and even for geese.
Cattle are absolutely crucial to the system here at Loch Gryniot in providing the type of habitat that we require for the bird species that are in residence here, but they're also critical throughout the west coast of Scotland, and it's becoming actually a major issue because there's a drive to reduce cattle numbers in Scotland, to reduce methane emissions in particular, but the potential is there to have a potentially disastrous effect on the biodiversity that depends on them in this part of the world.
Without the cattle on the west coast, we can't have a hope of providing habitats for these birds. So I think for the long-term future of much of this sort of conservation, we need to be preserving some degree of cattle farming as an industry.
I think there has to be an understanding from policymakers that in this part of the world, cattle will lose money, cows in particular lose money on a standalone basis, and that's why this, the old schemes were subsidy schemes to encourage folk to keep cattle. So any new conservation schemes that come into being, or agri funding that comes into being, it must acknowledge that fact that there has to be an element of each scheme that underpins the retention of cattle and sheep to a lesser extent in this part of the world, and then the conservation management over and above that.
Came out of this field in these ditches. What we did was
we all have broadly similar but subtly different farms, and we're all trying different things, but often they're similar things to elsewhere. And being in an environment where you can say, oh, well, this has worked well for me, or I've tried this and it hasn't worked, but somebody else within this group has had different results or tried it in a subtly different way with good results. I think that kind of peer-to-peer learning is really, really important, and it's probably one of the best environments we can have for that knowledge transfer, I think, especially being out on the farm, looking at the practicalities and the results in front of you of how people have got on with trying these different techniques.
If anything, you've got to look at reducing your inputs as much as possible and within that, looking at how your outputs can be maximised. We've done some carbon auditing, which has highlighted a few things we can change, and we're looking at those things to try and make the site more efficient regards carbon output.
The farming practices we like to cover on days like this are where they're demonstrating not just benefits to biodiversity, but also to the bottom line of the farm. It is vital to show that the businesses are viable in every sense, and that biodiversity is often there as a byproduct to a successful and profitable farm.
We're all travelling different but similar paths. We're all facing similar challenges. A lot of the solutions to these challenges can be quite local in nature, or being able to discuss it with people who are thinking about it in the same way as us is really important. Probably a lot more valuable thinking about it at the local or regional scale than nationwide. The challenges that we face can be quite specific at a local level.
Although we have smaller cattle, we're actually still meeting the market spec, and our idea, we're selling a lot more calves now. As I say, weaning percentages are going up every year, and the financial performance is following suit.
Yeah, I've had a good time today. It's always really interesting seeing other people's farm and how it works and how they make their systems work for them. And then obviously here with the context of making that system fit in for both the farm and for the wildlife conservation point of view.
For us, conservation is the prime objective, but we want to run as commercially profitable farm as we possibly can, not just to be able to show these things to other people, but also so that it brings in an income to RSPB so that we can sustain this sort of conservation management. It's a dual approach, it has to be.